Hey, friends, it's Mike Florak here for Black and Gold Happy Hour Sports Talk. We are very, very thankful for last week's show with down at the Spot Bar with JoJo D'Albert and all of his friends celebrating the awesome 40-year run that JoJo had at the Spot Bar. Thank you so much again to our sponsors, Tony Rinaldi up there with Rinaldi Law Offices in Cleveland, Ed Gahn with the O Patio and Pub on Lane, the place to be for any pregame activities in Columbus when you're trying to watch the Buckeyes play basketball, football, baseball, whatever it is up there. Perfect location, great time up there at the O. And also the Vukovic family. Steve, thank you so much. And thank you for Valerie for all of their generosity to make that happen. JoJo was really touched by it. Thanks to Greg Brown, Howard Carnell, and of course to Dan, our engineer, who made another terrific show. If you didn't get a chance to see that, go back and see that one. We're really excited about continuing to do this and figuring it out on the way as we do it, just like we did with the podcast. Reno Suckox was able to come in and say some good words about his old friend JoJo, and we had a good time with it. Reno was on a tight schedule, so we had to adapt, adjust, and improvise. And that's the same thing that we're doing here with the Black and Gold Happy Hour Sports Talk podcast. And I want to talk a little bit this time. We'll get into my recruiting segment at the end of this, but big week in sports here. The Steelers are off to a fantastic start, 4-1 tonight. They have a big divisional matchup with the Bengals, and of course Joe Burrow's out, but they did trade for Joe Flacco. There's a little bit of consternation about why would the Browns part with a guy who started their season as a starting quarterback and trade him to a divisional rival. So this will be the second time in NFL history that two quarterbacks who are over 40 years old are going to start and face off against each other with their respective teams. So it's Joe Flacco against Aaron Rodgers. Ought to be a great game tonight. You can throw all the records out the window when you're talking about the AFC North matchups. The Steelers have been playing pretty well. They did what they had to do against the Browns last weekend, took care of business against a lesser opponent. The defense looked better. The defense has looked really good since the return of Derek Harmon to stop the run a little bit better. They're relatively healthy is one thing you have to concentrate on. What's going on with the Steelers. They don't have a ton of injuries. Baltimore, conversely, is 1-5. Who would have thought that Baltimore would be 1-5 at this juncture in the season? But they are. However, they're staring down the barrel of a much easier schedule as this season continues to play out. The Steelers have a difficult schedule. It's going to get tougher as this season continues to play out. Baltimore is also going to get Lamar Jackson back, and I believe 5 starters, including Roquan Smith, on their defense. So look for Baltimore to be really, really tough from here on out. So the Steelers have a big matchup tonight. We'll see how that maps out the course of the season. They could go 2-0 in the AFC North, 5-1 overall with a win tonight against the Bengals. The Penguins got off to a pretty good start, 2-0 under new coach Dan Muse, subsequently lost 3 games, including a tough one the other night at Anaheim out on the West Coast. They also play tonight. I believe it's the Kings late tonight. So you have the Steelers and the Penguins going on tonight for sports fans. Ought to be a terrific night to watch sports. And we'll continue to monitor the Penguins' progress once we get to back with Phil Bourque, and Phil returns from the West Coast, and we'll continue to watch the Penguins and how their season unfolds with a new coach and a lot of young players who have looked good. Ben Kendall's looked good. They also have Harrison Brunick on the back line, has played pretty well overall, and of course Evgeny Malkin's off to a really good start. Sidney Crosby's off to their usual thing. When is Father Time going to catch up with any of these guys? So Father Time's going to be big on the docket tonight with the Penguins and their older superstars, and of course with the Steelers with Aaron Rodgers at the controls and going against Joe Flacco, who is also, as we said, over 40 years old. So it ought to be a good night. Also, last week, when is it great? When is it better to have Greg Brown, and also Rich Donnelly in the house talking baseball, talking Pirates. Just so good to get together with all the stories that Rich has. Thank you so much to Rich and everything that you do for everybody out in the community. You're such a great ambassador for Steubenville. You're a great ambassador for the Pirates, and we'll look forward to continuing to talk with you whenever we get a chance. So thanks to Rich for making last week's show very special, and we'll look forward to continuing to follow whatever the offseason brings with the Pirates here. Greg let us in on a little bit of insight that he doesn't think it's going to be long till you see some serious activity with the Pirates as far as pursuing free agents and or trades to bolster that offensive lineup to give the Pirates a much better chance to succeed as far as making a playoff run next year. So the Steelers, Pirates, and Penguins are always on our black and gold forefront. We also had a terrific time, and we're going to continue to talk with Tom Teak-Mort about the Unified Sports Program at Indian Creek High School, and we talk about everything that's going on, sports in the tri-state area. One of these Unified Sports, one is the Unified Sports Programs at Indian Creek. Where does it get any more pleasant than to see the way that these student athletes who would not get an opportunity to participate otherwise are now getting a chance to live out a dream and play on the fields that all the other kids get to play on because of this Unified Sports Program. So we'll continue to talk to Teak in the future and see how that goes about. But there's many things that we'll continue to talk about, and we've got some interesting guests lined up for the future. We'll continue to keep you updated on how that's going to go and when those guests are going to be available. Want to talk as we end up most of our shows on recruiting. And today I was on the phone for about a half hour with one of my college teammates. He's got a son who's a real good high school player, and they're trying to figure out the recruiting process and how the communication should go and what do we do about the showcases? Do we go to all of them? And I want to touch today a little bit about having frank conversations with your child. And there's certain things that you have to do to steer your child and not necessarily manipulate. It's to steer them and to get them to understand here's who you are when you look at players who play your position if you want to move on. And if you're, for instance, if you're a bigger athlete and you don't move great, you're probably not going to be a wide receiver. You're probably not going to be a point guard. You're probably not going to be a middle infielder. So to come to terms with that early and to say, you know, I'd rather play Division I at a position other than what my dream is, because college coaches are going to see me in that position because of my body type. And let's face it, God gives you what he gives you. And my body type wasn't going to let me be a shortstop. It wasn't going to let me be a defensive back. So being left-handed and having, you know, a bigger rear end and all the bigger stuff that comes with that wasn't going to allow me to move that quick and be a guy who played some of those different positions. So I had to come to terms with who I was and watch other college games. Watch the schools play their games and their practices that you're considering. And if the players at those positions physically look like you, then you could see yourself fitting in there. But if you're, 230 pounds and you want to play shortstop or wide receiver somewhere, guess what? You're going to go to those practices and you're not going to see a 5'11", 230-pound wide receiver. So you have to come to terms with who your son or daughter is. Okay, and let's put it into volleyball terms. If your daughter's 5'3", there's going to be only one or two little spots on the volleyball court that she's going to be able to play. Okay, so go and watch the competition. Go and watch the practices of some of the colleges that your son or daughter is thinking about attending and see where you fit physically. And don't be afraid to adapt and say, you know what? I might have been a linebacker in high school, but I've got some quickness and I'm 185 pounds. So I'm going to have to change my mindset and think maybe I could play safety at the college level. You have to be open to that. And college coaches are in the business of projection. So projection means, where do I see this kid 2 or 3 years down the line as he or she continues to develop in our program? What's their body type? How fast are they? How quick are they? How strong are they? And all those kind of things that go into seeing where someone is several years down the line.